Good morning and welcome to the 6th annual CNAS conference. My name's Nate Fick. I'm the CEO of the Center, and it's a real honor to have all of you with us this morning.
I'm here to talk to you a little bit today about a subject that came up repeatedly last week during Secretary Panetta's very important visit throughout Asia. What we have heard over the course of the last several months, last couple of years, is that, yes, the United States has now begun to spend more time focusing and thinking about the Asia-Pacific region. And there is a recognition that the lion's share of the history of the 21st century will indeed be written in the Asian-Pacific region.
This morning, we're pleased to have a very distinguished group with us to talk about America's role in the world. And the origin of this panel is actually several years old. 4 years ago, in the last before the last presidential election, Michelle Flournoy and Sean Brimley assembled a distinguished group of strategic thinkers. And they asked those folks, how is the strategic landscape that America faces changing? What are America's core interests in that changing landscape? What are the threats to American interest? And what are the opportunities America faces? And we decided, Richard Fontaine, our president, and I decided that at this moment, in the middle of a new presidential campaign, we should ask those questions again.
Good morning. I'm Rajiv Chandrasekaran from the Washington Post, and now it's a little time for the Afghan war. Time is ticking on the mission there, and so it is for us. Fernando and I are going to keep this fast-paced. My goal is to elicit an hour's worth of information from him in 15 minutes. I just returned from my most recent trip to Afghanistan a few weeks ago, and during that visit, I spent a fair bit of time with General Allen, who's making major changes in the U.S. and NATO campaign there. Instead of waiting until the very last months of 2014 to hand over the toughest districts and provinces to the Afghan army, Allen is accelerating the transition. He wants to front-load risk while he still has the time and the combat power to catch the Afghans if they fall.
This is a little bit of a diversion from history at CNAS. We have never done a panel specifically on veterans issues, and I would open just with the argument that this is very much a part of our core mission to discuss and devise pragmatic national security policy. Not only is there an element of moral obligation on the part of commanders, I think, more generally perhaps the country, that's something we can talk about, but there's a colder calculation as well. In the era of the all-volunteer force, I think you can make a very strong case that how we treat our veterans directly influences the pool of people from which we can pick to fight our next war.
My name is John Noggle, and for 3 years I had the privilege of serving as the president of the Center for a New American Security, which was founded more than 5 years ago to promote strong, principled, pragmatic defense and national security policies for the United States of America. A critical component of that mission is inspiring and educating the next generation of national security leaders. And I am deeply honored to be with you today, to be back with you today, to pay tribute to some of the very best thinkers and leaders of that generation in the name of First Lieutenant Andrew Bacevich, Jr.
It's an honor to introduce the two individuals who will make up the next session in our program today. I don't need to tell anyone in this room just how interlinked economics and security have become. A glance at the headlines easily demonstrates that currency fluctuations, debt crises, budgetary austerity, and trade flows are intimately linked with defense, stability, and broader considerations of national security. This is something that the two men who will speak next understand intimately. Each is active at the very center of economics and strategy. It's a high honor to introduce Robert Zoellick, a truly great public servant who serves as the 11th president of the World Bank. Prior to joining the bank, he served as vice chairman of Goldman Sachs, deputy secretary of state, U.S. trade representative, and counselor to the secretary of Treasury. I could go on, but you get the vivid picture here. He'll be joined in conversation by Sebastian Mallaby, one of the world's top thinkers and writers on international economics.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to our MidAfternoon Surge, which is going to be our panel on responsible defense in a changing world. This panel is built on the research work that we've done at CNAS over about the last year that culminated in 2 reports, one of which called Hard Choices we published in early October last year, aimed at the supercommittee's deliberations in Congress. And then our newest report on the table outside, Sustaining Preeminence. So we would invite you to snag a copy of that on your way out if you haven't seen that already. And today we'll talk about aspects of this, and are happy to go into some details in our Q&A from the audience later on. But our broader discussion will take advantage of our panel here today, which is a unique and distinguished one.
We've got an exciting last panel for the day. We're going to be talking about the Middle East to close out the conference. The conversations about the Middle East rarely end, so I imagine that we'll just table things at the end of about an hour. And
Ladies and gentlemen, this excellent Middle East panel marks the end of the formal portion, and I emphasize the formal portion, of the Center for New American Security's annual conference, Rethinking U.S. Security, Navigating a World in Transition. As you can see, CNAS is working to develop new approaches that will strengthen America's security at a time of great transition. I'd like to thank all of those who provided the intellectual firepower today, our paper writers, our panelists, Assistant Secretary Kurt Campbell, and World Bank President Robert Zoellick. I'd like to thank our board of directors and advisors who have been so important to CNAS and whose help we will continue to rely on in the future. And I'd like to thank the sponsors of today's conference and of all of our work over the past 5 years. We couldn't have done it without you. Finally, from CNAS, I'd like to recognize 2 people in particular, Kay King for building and shaping today's agenda, and Sarah Connaughton for absolutely flawless execution today.